Rails or Node, React or Vue, Postgres or MySQL, tabs or spaces. The debate goes on. This is the myth of the best tech stack, and you're listening to Technology for Humans. All right, so we have these debates in tech that go on, and for some reason they don't really ever end. The debate of what is the best tech stack, what is the best tool to use, what is the best programming language, and what is the best thing to use for you. Well, here's the truth. There is no right answer. The right answer is really what is the best tech stack for you and your situation. As developers, we can get stuck into using the tools that we know the best. Absolutely. I mean, I will tell you right up front that if the choice comes up, I'll use Rails and Postgres every time. But the truth is, you have to consider all of the factors to do with the application that you're building. What is it going to be used for? Who's going to be using it? Who's going to be maintaining it? All of these things are very important, and a bunch of other considerations. The context. The best technology choice depends upon all of those factors and fitting in the best compromise position, because you will never have everything absolutely correct. And you might find that in a couple of years down the track, when some scaling has come into play or some new features that you didn't realize were going to be needed come into play, you might find that you need to change things. Here's what I would not do, however. I would not build an application using a stack just because it's the one I've always used. And I'll give you an example of that. I had a client a while back who had an excellent application built on Ruby on Rails. It was in Heroku. It hooked up to their CRM, and it worked extremely well. Saved them a lot of time and money and did the job outstandingly well. There came a time, however, when a new internal team wanted to take over building that application and maintaining that application. And they convinced the board and they convinced the management team that they should do that. However, what inevitably happened is once that team took it over, they said, well, actually, we are not Ruby on Rails specialists. We have a different skill set. You know, our developers are specialised in a different skill set, so we're going to rebuild the entire application. No advantage to that except that it was easier for them, which is really no excuse in this day and age when we've got generative AI tools that can write most of the code for you. And sure, you still need to know what you're doing, but there's actually no excuse for not being able to upskill rapidly on a new technology stack. And the truth is that the stack that you're using might be great for a launch product, and it might not be good for a scaling or a large enterprise product. And you might have to consider, well, what is that future state? Do I build the application with that in mind, or do I build it with today in mind? And my advice to you would be build it with today in mind with some understanding of where you expect it to go to. Don't overspend on day one because you have to have this incredible containerized application with microservices, and you find out that you've only got 10 users for the first year. You see you've wasted money there, and you've wasted time, and you have to maintain it. Here's some questions that you can ask. First one is, am I selecting a technology stack because it's trendy? You know, a bunch of other developers that I heard about and I read about on X or on LinkedIn are using this particular tool. I'm going to use it because it sounds interesting. And that might be fine for a hobby project to learn something. It's not okay for a commercial product that is going to be used by actual users that are paying for the product. Because then you have to consider things like, is it possible to hire developers for this? Is it possible to maintain this application in the future? Do I know that this particular framework or tool is going to be maintained in the future? In other words, do I know that it's going to have longevity? And if the answer is I'm not sure, then probably don't use it. Now, whilst your team might not be completely 100% up to speed on the technology that you want to have them implement. For example, maybe they're a React team and you want to have them use Vue. Well, that might be okay because they could probably learn that, and they could probably, using the right tool sets, they could probably work that out. In other words, do you have senior developers that could work things out? And if the answer again is no, well, don't do it. You might have an engineering team, an infrastructure team that love using AWS and you want them to use Azure. Well, maybe there's a possible path for that and they might be willing to do that. So being able to maintain things into the future, obviously as a consideration. The developers is the technology stack that you've selected based on, I've got one great developer who can do this, but no one else in the world can do it. Well, that's not worth doing them because you can't maintain it in a year's time. That person might leave. They might get hit by a bus. What are you going to do? So you have to think about long-term maintainability. Can the stack that you have selected support it today and in the near term? So don't go thinking about 10 years' time or even 5 years' time. What if I scale to 5 million users in the first year? That might be a little bit unreal and you might have to prepare for that. But if your application is only going to be used by a few thousand people, then select a stack that's great for that. Not too complicated. Developers like developing in it. You've got availability. And the last question you're going to ask is, does it reduce risk or does it increase risk? Obviously a consideration, because if it increases risk and that's problematic. So these are the conversations you have to ask. So really, when someone says to you, what's the best technology stack to use? The correct answer is another question, which is best for what? If you don't know the context, you can't answer. And when you're trying to figure it out for a client, ask those questions and figure out some others and road test a few different solutions, because you don't have the best answer off the cuff immediately. You have to think about it. You have to work through it. So wrapping this up, first of all, there is no such thing as the best technology stack. There just isn't. There is the best stack for what you're doing. Jumping on the bandwagon of the latest trend can be an expensive decision. Wait until something is road tested, understand if there's a future in it, understand if the hype is actually worth it. And the last one is the best technology stack is actually the one that your team can maintain. Bye.